Hello, this is the Lore Master, and welcome back to part 3 of the Wendigo stories, the Feasting Saga. Thank you for all who's been listening and watching, and it's starting to heat up. Now, I've got a few more of these we're gonna do, but don't worry, it gets more intense and more epic from here. Just keep staying with us. And if you haven't watched the previous 2 videos, please do so. Remember, this is a series. The last thing you want to do is realize you're watching the sequel to you're watching part 2, and you haven't seen part 1 and you're completely lost. That is no fun. So last time we talked with our friends, the Fox brothers. They were going to break the news of the murder to the parents of the soldier. And this is where we began. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, and whoever else is watching, your dog, cat, whatever. And like and subscribe. With that, let's go. As we walked through the dilapidated streets, James began to talk. Can you believe this place? It's the largest city in all of Alabama, and yet it is the biggest eyesore in all of the South. To be honest, it seems less like America and more like a third world country. Honestly, I'm even wondering if half of the people who live here are civilized or just a bunch of cavemen. What would you expect? What do you expect? This is the center of mining throughout the entire South. Most of the people who work here work in mines. So you aren't really going to get some of the famous Southern hospitality we're used to. This is a pull yourself up by the bootstraps kind of place. A place that feels like it should be forgotten, but is too important to be forgotten. Honestly, I feel like a Wendigo loose here is the least of these people's problems. Maybe we could go to the governor and talk to him about the conditions of Black Hope. Maybe we could give this area some help to pull up out of the slump it seems to be in, I replied. James nodded. Yeah, and maybe the war is over and we can fix some of the problems we have in our state. If you ask me, the state has gone to pot. But hey, at least it's not all of Alabama like this, so there's that. True, but I never thought I would see a place like this, I answered. Look, it's not our job to fix this place. It's our job to find Wendigos. The sooner we find it and get rid of it, the sooner we can be on another adventure in another town. Hopefully the next place won't be the ass crack of the United States, said James thoughtfully. As we walked down the street, we found the place we were looking for. It wasn't one of the best places to grow up, but it was certainly better than most places around here. It looked like an old log cabin, made up of fine oak with a nice smoke coming from the chimney. Not the black, suffocating smoke that seemed to hang over the area. As we looked, we saw some clothes drying on a line. To be honest, it kind of reminded us of home in a way. Bracing ourselves for what we were about to do, we walked up the old walkway to the door. This place has got to be home to some nice people if they actually take care of their place like this. We strolled up to the door and knocked on it. As I waited for the door to open, I felt a great sense of dread. I had done this many times over the years, but the sense of dread that gets you when you're about to give someone bad news, you never get used to it. All we could do was wait for the person to open the door. Finally, someone came to the door. We heard their footsteps coming as they walked quickly to the door. The door swung open, and there stood a woman in a nice, frilly dress with a few patches on it. But it was still a nice dress, even though it looked like it had been worn one too many times. The woman was a little large and looked out of breath from running from one side of the cabin to the other. She said, "Who are you and what do you want?" "We're here to talk to you about your son," I said. "Private Howard McBride." "Oh, have you found him? He has been missing all day, and I have been quite worried," he said. She said, he said he was going coon hunting last night, but he never came back. Please, is he okay?" I looked into the woman's eyes, and that was a big mistake. Her eyes were wild and depressed and desperate. She knew something was wrong, but she was hoping that she was mistaken, that he was just gotten out drunk or something. It crushed me to look into her eyes. A part of me was struggling to come up with what to say when James came to my rescue. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but your son is dead." You could visibly see the depression in her eyes, the you could visibly see the desperation in her eyes turn to depression with deep sadness. She was shaking, and her hand went up to clutch her mouth. She started to slowly sob. "Who did it?" she asked. "Who's responsible for this? Is it them Yankee boys?" "Isn't it? It's them Yankee boys, isn't it? He got killed by those filthy Yankee boys. A bunch of northern aggressors, the lot of them, had nothing better to do than kill our innocent boys. It wasn't a Union soldier, ma'am, who killed him," I said in a low voice. "Then who was it?" she asked. "Was it those hoodlums down the street? Filthy bunch of knuckle-draggers?" "It wasn't them either," I said. "Then who was it?" she screamed through the tears. "It was a Wendigo, ma'am. We believe your son was attacked by Wendigos," I tried to explain. Her eyes widened in shock and fear. Her grief and sadness turned to anger and paranoia in a second. You tell me there are Wendigos in this town? And they're the one who killed my boy?" she cried. "Yes," I said flatly. Then she turned her head and shouted, "Ezra, get your lazy butt out here. There are two men here talking about Wendigos." We heard from the other side of the house running over, and their feet sounded loudly on the floor as they came running to the door. The man walked out. The miner, covered in coal dust, hands were nearly black and his boots were filthy. They were coated in mud, dust, and whatever else he might have come into contact with, walking down in those deep mines. Where are these Wendigos? Where are they? I have my shotgun. I take their heads off. Show me those monsters. Show those monsters who's boss. I'll show them who they're dealing with. "They're not here," she said. "They killed our son." "What?" he shouted as loud as he could. Let's get my boys, and we'll find these Wendigos. Hang them by the necks, tar and feather them. I'll show them what happens when they mess with the McBrides and take a boy from me. That won't be necessary," I said. We Wendigo hunters are on the case." "Well, do you know who those red-faced devils are?" the man wanted to know. "Not yet, sir, but we are still looking. We just came here to tell you the bad news," I answered. "Well, you told me the bad news. Now go out and get those things. I tell I'll tell the Bass District about this. Every citizen here will help me hunt those things. The man was visibly upset and angry. This is incredibly dangerous because you don't know how to hunt wendigos, I tried to reason. Yes, I do. Just 2 bullets in their head. It can't be that difficult, the man said. It's very complicated, sir. To kill a wendigo, you have to find its heart. But the heart is protected by a circle of ice. Your guns won't do anything against it. The only thing that can shatter it is this, I said as I pulled out a knife. This knife is pure elk bone, and it's been blessed by a shaman. This is the only thing that can break the ice around the wendigo's heart. If you shoot it with your bullets, all you'll do is make it angry. And if you make it angry, it will go through the town like a bull in a china shop. No one in this town will be left alive. Then what do? I need justice for my boy, the man cried. We'll get justice for your boy. A wendigo has never survived an encounter with us. We just have to figure out where they are, I explained to the man. Well, where do these wendigos live? The man asked. Out in the mountains, deep in the wilderness. Do you know any place that is dark, cold, and abandoned that a wendigo might call home? I questioned. The only places that are cold and deep enough are the mines, the man replied. Are there any abandoned mines that they might call home and set up residence around? I questioned further. Yes, there is. It is the Lost Cove Mine. It's out there on the east side of the mountain, the place we call cursed ground. No one's brave enough or stupid enough to go near that mine, and it's been abandoned for a couple years now. You will not find it on any map, but that's where I come in. I know the place like the back of my hand, and if you don't expect me to come along, you might as well shoot me. This is the only way to stop me from hunting those things, the man said, abased, absolutely. And who are you, sir? Ezra McBride. And if you want to get up to those mines, you better take me with you, the man said, with determination in his eyes. James looked at me and I looked at him. We didn't know what to make of such a character, but considering how much research it would take to find the place on our own, we couldn't get there without this man's help. And obviously, this man was going to get up there no matter what it took, even if the army itself tried to stop him. I sighed and said, okay, then let's prepare to go. He smiled at us, a big toothless grin, and said, well, what are we waiting for then? Let's get 'em moving. With that, Ezra McBride joined us on our next quest. And that is part 3 of the Wendigo story. I hope I did a good job reading it for you, and I hope you have a good day, and I hope you like listening to it. And I hope you like and subscribe. I've got more stories for this coming out, so keep your eyes peeled and stay tuned. This is the Lore Master heading out.